Thanks for watching, and here's what's coming up on this episode of Fired Up.
Hey, she's this really nice old lady and some guy just robbed her with a gun, and this kind of mob grew right after it happened.
The story from Lieutenant Randy Sutton is not brought to you by the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority.
Some of the things that the media are going after him for are things that can happen to anybody, actually.
Suppressed .22 caliber pistol.
Our panelists include Emily Miller, Marketing Director from the Gun Store in Las Vegas, Michael Giles, retired police officer and defense attorney from Creed & Giles, Tony D., retired police officer and firearms instructor from the Gun Store, Lieutenant Randy Sutton, retired policeman and author, and your host, Bob Irwin from the Gun Store.
Hey, thanks for tuning in and welcome to Fired Up. I'm Bob Irwin, your host for the show. We're coming to you from the Gun Store in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show covers the subjects related to guns, politics, and self-defense. On this segment, our panel discussions are going to be first an old-fashioned posse kind of rising up out of nowhere in Rhine, Georgia to chase down a robber. A tragedy all around in Ventura County. A county sheriff up there shot and killed a young student who was carrying a fake AK-47. And Florida lawmakers have voted down a bill that would have repealed the Stand Your Ground law, and in doing so would have required victims run from criminals, but that law was defeated when they were trying to repeal it, which will cause some interesting discussion. Right now, though, we're going to start where we were with this kind of a cute story of a cute armed robbery.
Cute armed robbery.
This young fella got a surprise, he walked into a small town of Rhine, Georgia, and robbed a sweet little lady that ran their local convenience store.
Yeah, a 60-year-old his name was Ken, walked in right after the clerk told him what had happened. And she said, I had just been robbed and, robbed by a man with a gun. And apparently more people started to gather around and everyone kind of got this really upset, like, hey, she's this really nice old lady and some guy just robbed her with a gun. And this kind of mob grew right after it happened.
Turned out there was about 20 people all of a sudden, gathered around, and one guy spots this poor robbery suspect about 200 yards away, and tally-ho.
Sounds like something out of a movie.
Well, what happened was the original witness, Ken, they decide they're going to go after this guy, so they all run to their pickup trucks, where down south, what's in the back of your pickup truck?
Your 30-30.
That's right. You got your rifles, and they took off after him. They caught up to him, and he tried to hide in a shed, and it didn't go too well for him.
This guy's lucky to be alive. I read that and I was just imagining this shed full of holes with light filtering through and dust rising up. A more well thought out plan on their part might have been to hang back instead of announcing their presence with a warning shot and call the police and follow him. But he wasn't very bright just strolling down the street after robbing this person, in a small town.
Everybody knows everybody else.
And apparently Ken, the individual that was first on the scene, and hence was first to get his rifle, when the guy was wandering away, fired a warning shot, which was a warning shot, because that Ken, driving around in the southern United States there with his .30 in a small town, could have hit the robber if he'd chosen to. So Ken fired the warning shot, which caused the robber to take off instead of surrender. And we need to say here, warning shots are always a little dicey.
Well, warning shot, what goes up comes down, and that's a liabilities lawyer's dream come true.
Absolutely. Every round fired hits something.
Yeah, so Ken, if he shot into the ground, but we're out in the rural area anyway, so maybe it's a little less than in the middle of the city. But a warning shot is definitely not a good idea. I mean, not up in the air like
Especially
that.
if he's got a gun, he might think he might return fire.
Sure. And, you know,
That would probably been a bad decision.
That would have been a terrible
Yeah,
decision had he done
From
that.
bad to worse in this guy's decision-making process.
But while everybody out there is listening now, you consider firing a warning shot to get somebody to get away from you. That's always a possibility that they will believe they're being fired at, and instead of running, they fire back at you. So
Well, and from a
kind of were a little light on warning shots
And
given
from
that
a
problem.
purely legal standpoint, if you say, I fired a warning shot because I want him to get away, you haven't articulated fear for your safety or life, you could easily be charged as the primary aggressor. And if they start shooting back, they may have a self-defense claim. So aside from the what goes up must come down and bullets hit something,
and the Joe Biden defense.
And the Joe Biden defense. You
you
got to be very careful about that.
You just have to admire the town folk. You know, folks is what they are. Not putting up with the robbery. It makes you feel like middle America is here again, and there's still people out there. There's still hope for the country when we can all gather around and go chase the bad guy down. And
They didn't all go, let's all call the cops and wait and stay with her. Like, we're going to get our guns. Hell no, we're going to find this guy.
I would venture to guess no one even considered calling, Joe down at the diner or whatever. Here's the thing I want to know. Was the brainiac who did this from the area, or was he just passing through and didn't realize that his big city practices weren't going to fly in small town Georgia?
Just walking down the street, maybe they won't
I
notice
think
me.
we've
It's
been
fine.
seeing a resurgence, I believe, in citizens getting more involved when they see something take place like this. I mean, look at what happens on airlines now.
Oh, yeah.
Last thing you want to do is mess around on an airline and mouth off. I mean, the tolerance level is much lower. And I've seen a number of articles in the last couple of years where citizens really do get involved, and in some cases, they make the bad decisions. I mean, there was a recent case here in a Las Vegas club where a bad guy took out a gun and a citizen tried to disarm him and wound up in the death of the citizen.
Right.
So, common sense rules have to apply also. It's great to be involved, but it's best if you're not armed and you don't have the ability to defend yourself, then be a witness.
Be a good witness.
Don't be a hero, be a witness.
That's always tough. And when citizens try to do these things, you realize we all see a lot of television, and you want to do what the police do. The police are wearing body armor generally. They have free lawyers. From our earlier cases we were talking about. It's a different thing. I admire everybody that has the gumption to jump in and try and stop a crime, but you got to do it thinking about your own safety at the same time. And not all the bad guys stop when you say stop, and some of them actually violently attack. The case you're talking about, Randy, I recall that in the paper.
Right,
And
this is very recent.
the guy started to shoot in a nightclub for no apparent reason, arguing over a tip or his admission
The
price.
entry
He
he
wanted
wanted
his
back.
entry
Money
fee
back.
refunded, yeah.
And he started arguing. There's some pushing and shoving. He pulled out a gun and fired it. And a citizen who was just there decided to jump in and help everybody. And when he closed on the guy and they're wrestling around, the gun fired and it killed the citizen who was jumping in.
Now I'm going to tell you a nice story that had a happy ending, which was similar in another casino. Was when I was a watch commander and I was working. This guy the shooter went into the casino and just opened fire randomly. And what he didn't know was that some of the people watching him were, there were 2 off-duty police officers from out of state and a couple of soldiers. And as soon as he went to reload,
Yeah, he
They,
turned his shoulder and they came across the table after him.
They took care of business, and there was a happy ending. But then again, these are trained law enforcement and military who gauged the threat, made a tactical decision, and wound up besting the shooter.
Fortunately, it worked out for these folks from Rhine, Georgia. The little old lady was avenged. They didn't actually perforate this guy.
And they did end up holding him for the
Holding him.
sheriff, who arrived later. And I'd like you to remember, ladies and gentlemen that are watching our show, the story from Lieutenant Randy Sutton is not brought to you by the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. Doesn't happen that often here, but you know, nobody's immune from crime. We've reached a point where we need to go to the next segment. We've got to do some commercials in here. Thanks. Please hold on with us. More interesting stuff coming up.
More discussion on guns, politics, and self-defense when we come back on Fired Up.
I can't think of a more tragic story that ended in the death of a 13-year-old.
Some of the things that the media are going after him for are things that can happen to anybody, actually.
Welcome back to Fired Up. In Santa Rosa, California last month, I am sure that everyone out there heard about a Ventura County Sheriff Sergeant mistaking a replica gun for a real one and killed a 13-year-old student who was holding that gun. A truly tragic incident for all those involved and all of us on this panel who have spent time in law enforcement. This is just a terrible, terrible story. Randy, I'm going to let you start out with this.
Well, this incident, I can't think of a more tragic story that ended in the death of a 13-year-old, and at the same time will destroy the life of a sheriff sergeant, and these replica weapons, these fake weapons. The news, of course, vilified this police officer. Vilified him. I mean, the media ran with the banner, of course, of the cop kills boy with toy, and these replica weapons and a lot of these fake guns look exactly alike. You cannot tell the difference, and so you have to make a decision of life and death within one split second, and the media portraying a 13-year-old as being harmless. I'm sorry, it isn't true. My first shooting was a 14-year-old who laid in wait for me, and during her foot pursuit, and when I came around the corner, he was pointing his gun at me, and if I hadn't gotten the first round off, I probably wouldn't be here right now. Now, fortunately for him and for me, my round hit the stucco of the building he was at, and a piece of the rock hit him in the head, and he thought he was shot, and he wasn't. But that reality is that a weapon in the hand of anyone is a threat, and this officer made the decision in a split second, fired his weapon, and killed this boy.
We've had a lot of cases that we've discussed that include, the adult robbers bluffing with a fake gun and telling the shop owner I've got a gun, or trying to intimidate the clerk. But with children and these kind of incidents, it can't happen. There's no reason for it. It's a fake gun, and I understand that it looks very real because that's what they're made to look like. But this is heartbreaking.
And going the other way too. I mean, what's the officer going to do? Wait and see. Oh, is that a real gun? Is that a pellet gun? Is that a airsoft gun or whatever? And we've had instances where the bad guys have painted their real guns red, because in training we use red guns that are can't chamber ammunition or unusable, and they've done that just to put that into the officer's head. Is this a real gun? Is this not a real gun? So I mean, they're playing mind games with it. And I can't blame the officer at all. It's happened to me. I mean, I've pulled my gun out and I came this close to killing somebody, and it was a Crossman pellet gun. And I guess this gun actually was a pellet gun too. It wasn't airsoft or with the red nozzle on it, or they put the red.
Well, in California, like most states, has laws that require that if it's a replica gun, it has to have that orange tip on it, or if it's an airsoft gun or a pellet gun. You're absolutely right. The kids just paint them over. Criminals will paint them over so they look more real. I've seen cases where the victim actually got struck with a firearm and then turned around and said, well, I didn't think it was real because it didn't feel heavy enough. It probably wasn't real. It was probably somebody had a plastic gun and they were trying to present it as a real gun. But my boys got into the Nerf guns in a big way, and they always wanted to go out and have little Nerf wars in the neighborhood, and I wouldn't let them because I just was not willing to take the chance that somebody would mistake one of those in bright orange and pink and blue and everything. Still, they could mistake that for a real firearm, and then I'd be in this same situation. And this AK, the pictures of it, it looked like the real thing. You could not tell it was not a real AK.
The other side of this is the laws require that the fake guns have a red muzzle, or mostly in California, I think now they have to have the whole thing being red or a bright color or clear. But air guns, BB guns that fire steel BBs that go to 1,000 feet per second, because they are really dangerous, aren't painted red on the muzzle. So some of the BB guns and things come that way, and of course any kid can get a can of paint. But this is so difficult. One of the things I do on the side is some movie rentals of fake firearms, and I had a call recently from a little police agency here in Southern Nevada that was doing a training tape where they wanted to have a couple of terrorists. So they wanted a couple of AK-47s. They wasn't going to shoot anything. They just wanted to go walk through scenarios. And I set 2 fake AKs on the desk in my office. The lieutenant came over and he walked over. Now those are metal. He walked over and he picked them up. He racked the action and said, boy, those are really cool, but I need fake ones. Those were fake ones. And this guy had done a couple of tours in Iraq. Those guns, of course, we highly control and don't let them out of our sight, but the soft airs are exactly the same. They're just made out of plastic, and some of those have a lot of metal in them. And there's these
life
no way
and
to tell.
These life and death decisions that happen instantaneously have reverberations for years and years to come. Besides the legal ramifications of that come as a result of a police use of force, there's also the emotional ramifications. And I can tell you that not a day goes by that I don't think of my having to take a human life. I mean, it was a life-altering decision for me. Did it save my life? Yes, but at the same time, it changes you. Yeah. And there's a statistic that the vast majority of police officers who get involved in a fatal shooting resign
within 2 years.
Within 2
usually
years.
The number was 80% in 2 years. The number's a little bit better now because of the peer counseling and in our department, if the officer's involved in a shooting, they'll put another officer with him to go through the internal affairs investigation, the grand jury, whatever. And it really helps a lot. And then there's mandatory counseling now too that wasn't back when I was on the job. So
unfortunately, in this particular instance, and I'm sure the sergeant's getting counseling and he's going through all of that, the problem with this case is the media jumped all over it because it looked horrible at the beginning. When you get behind the facts, some of the things that the media are going after him for are things that can happen to anybody, actually. He was a trainer. He taught classes. He taught classes outside. He wrote about these issues. And some of the things he said and did are being pointed to say that he was too gung-ho, he was too anxious, he was too this and that. He was also a military veteran. He'd been over to, I believe it was Afghanistan that he served in. And that was brought up without actually looking at all the facts. One of the issues that was questionable at the beginning was he had another person driving the car. He got out of the vehicle when they saw the individual and began giving commands. And the media made a big deal out of this. And Randy, give me your thoughts on this. They said he only gave commands for 10 seconds before pulling the trigger.
10 seconds is an absolute eternity. And in actuality, I'm shocked that he waited that long. But you know, there was something else to this case. There was a citizen that saw the police arriving and told the kid to get rid of the weapons because the police were coming, and he ignored them.
Well, and he apparently ignored the sergeant's commands to drop the gun, show me your hand, show me your hand. You know, we've all done this. We've talked to people, pointed guns at them, and told them to comply. And most of the time, they comply. But when they
what
don't,
was going through the kid's mind? What was his motive on to not obey the commands of the officer?
A one scenario opinion. I worked a case where one of my school police officers that I had run through an academy shot a young man who had a Daisy spit and image lever action rifle. We still have it over in the classroom. And that child was 12 years old, big, 5 foot, heavy, when the police arrived on a man with a gun call, and he's hiding from the police and yelling, drop the gun, and so forth. He thought the police knew that he was a kid with a toy gun and they were participating in his cops and robbers game. Fortunately, when the school officer fired, with my great marksmanship training, he hit him once through the leg and once through the arm and didn't kill him. There's no way around that when you have a fake gun like that. It's the kids have to be taught the cops are not playing and they're not your playmates. Don't let your children carry guns like that out on the street. It is incredibly dangerous. We'll be right back after these messages.
We'll have more Fired Up when we come back.
Suppressed .22 caliber pistol.
Here at the Rocky Mountain Gun Show at the South Point Hotel Casino in Las Vegas, and we're at the National Rifle Association booth, so the NRA can give you listeners, viewers, a little bit of education why you should join the NRA. This is possibly the most important part of the entire show. Kevin, you got the floor. Tell them.
Well, the most important thing is the fact that we can have a great company fighting for our gun rights. And it just seems like through the years they're being chipped away at. And we're either going to fight for them or lose them.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
When I started in this business 35, 40 years ago, it was so different than it is now. Mm-hmm. We, as dealers, were regulated just ludicrously, in my opinion. And the NRA is the main hammer that's fighting this.
Yep. And we keep getting knocked down every month, and we got to get back up. And it takes money and memberships to do it.
And if you don't keep up, this show is being filmed probably 2 weeks before you're going to see it, but there's a new bill in Congress already again to ban magazines that hold more than 10 shots. And the only way you're going to keep your ability to defend yourself is get with Kevin's group, join the NRA, and you get nice magazines and they'll keep you up to speed. It's important. You need to be an NRA member. Thank you very much, Kevin. I appreciate that. We are back here on Fired Up. Mr. Giles, my attorney, and I are here at the Rocky Mountain Gun Show in Las Vegas at the South Point Hotel Casino. And viewers will recall we did a lot of work on our show on the Starbucks debacle that they do or don't want gun owners in their stores. These t-shirts are the result of part of that. And I guess they're letting gun owners back in Starbucks if they don't flaunt it or something. They really don't want them all out, but they don't want them in, sort of, and they've changed. Anyway, these shirts are still extremely popular in our store. How are sales going here?
Very good. It's kind of the anti-Starbucks. But what people don't realize that this is a public domain symbol. This is the siren off of the 1932, Moby Dick story. And we just added 245s to our repertoire.
I figured it had to be out of copyright or Starbucks would have come after everybody.
Right, and some of my best customers are the ladies at Starbucks.
Oh,
and they,
sure.
and they like our stickers on the back of the Volkswagens and the Toyotas.
So, are sales good?
Very good.
People like this?
They're excellent.
I see them all over the place. So.
And right now, for this month and next month, we're also having several 2-for-1 packages. T-shirts, hoodies, tank tops.
Do you have a website where people can
Yes,
get a
we
hold
do.
of you? They can get a price list and all that?
Gunscoffee.com.
Probably better.
Gunscoffee.com.
Gunscoffee1word.com.
Right, and it'll take you right to my website.
Well, we got 3 or 4 people listening to this show, and hopefully they will do
Hopefully
that.
those 3 or 4 people will hook right up.
Alex, we get a copy of the pink shirt too, because that one seems to me to be the most attractive shirt.
And we also have the ultimate carried concealed gun, the bra holster.
We do.
Yes. And it's right here on display. Would you care to see the display?
We're on cable. It's okay.
Show them.
I'm famous, baby.
And here it is. This is the Taurus TCP 380.
Outstanding.
We fit
You just-
20 different sizes.
You just made the headline on Fired Up.
There you go, babe.
Perfect.
Thank you guys for appearing on it. I hope we'll get your website on the crawl on the show so they can see it.
All right.
And I appreciate you being here. Appreciate
Thanks
what
for coming
you're
to see
doing.
us.
This is a good
Appreciate
thing.
it. Thanks, Bob.
We're still at the Rocky Mountain Gun Show here at the South Point Casino in Las Vegas, and we have a display here from the Oath Keepers organization, something I'm very much in favor of. And I'm here with Dan, who's going to give a little background on what the Oath Keepers is and what you do and how to join.
Right. Well, Oath Keepers is primarily a educational organization, and what we are is active and retired military, law enforcement, firefighters, basically anybody that's taken an oath. And what we're trying to do is teach the active people about constitutional law. So if they're given unconstitutional orders, they'll be able to stand down from those particular orders. Because what we're hoping is that they get educated enough to be able to tell the difference between a constitutional order and non-constitutional. And we're a non-political organization. We don't go for either parties or like that. So.
Well, that's great. And you have all sorts of literature and things?
Yeah, we sell T-shirts, and for a small donation, we give away a Constitution. And we have stickers for vehicles and all. And here's our brochure that we pass out for free to people. You may have one yourself if you want.
And they can reach you at the website here to join?
That's correct.
Oathkeepers.org.
Yep. Okay, and then we have different books that we sell also about the Constitution. This is a book that compares the original Constitution with the Constitution we have now, which is
to our current one.
Yes, exactly. There's big difference. So if you get a chance to read this. And basically, we have our donation jar, which I'm sure Bob is going to. No, I'm just kidding. That's pretty much it.
I've got to tell you some history of the Oath Keepers that you don't know about.
Oh, really?
Yes, Stuart Rhodes.
I bet you I do. He shot his eye out in your place.
Actually, he was outside my place, but Stuart worked for me at the time that he lost his eye, and worked for me for quite a while, back before he was the famous Stuart Rhodes.
Yeah.
Just
for the camera, Stuart Rhodes is the founder of Oath Keepers.
He's the founder of it and worked for me years and years ago before this all started.
Right.
Fine young man, very bright guy, very bright lawyer.
Right.
I would encourage anybody, if you're a vet or a cop or retired from there, that you get a hold of these people at their website. It's a good organization, helps everything conservative causes and constitutional causes.
I might add to that, we're a national organization, but we are a local chapter here. So if you want to get involved with the local chapter, we have meetings on the second Thursday of every month. And if you visit meetup.com and search for Las Vegas Oath Keepers, it has all our rallies in there, and our meeting times and dates and location.
Thank you very much.
You're
I
welcome,
appreciate
sir.
you
Pleasure.
doing the interview. We'll be right back after a couple messages. Don't go away.
Suppressed 22 caliber pistol. Hi, this is Tony D with the Gun Store in Las Vegas for another historical demonstration. Today we're going to be talking about suppressors or silencers. The technology for suppressors have come a long way since the beginning. I know back in the old days they had Maxim, the 1910 suppressor was very, very innovative. Sir Hiram Maxim, who invented the Maxim machine gun, also did a lot of work with suppressors too. During World War II, High Standard, the OSS, which was the forerunner to the CIA, they wanted a clandestine gun for assassination purposes, something quiet, something not too big. And they contracted High Standard, which was a company, and they built a suppressed 22 caliber pistol. And this is not the exact model that High Standard used, but it's very similar visually to the one that they developed. We use these in a lot of the movies. We a lot of times we'll do a rental package with suppressors in them because people want to hear the difference between a live round or an unsuppressed gun and a suppressed gun. And I don't want to disappoint you people a lot, but what you see in the movies, of course, is not really what happens a lot in real life. With the 22 caliber ones, you can get them pretty quiet. And we're going to be shooting 3 different ones today to show you how quiet they can be. However, with the larger calibers, the 9mm 45, and especially with the rifle calibers, it's very difficult to bring the decibel level down to where you're not going to be needing hearing protection and everything indoors. Outdoors is much different. Here indoors, we're confined and sound bounces off, and you're going to get a lot louder. Now, with the ammunition for the 22s, of course, we use a special kind of ammunition. It's made by Gemtech and is made specifically for suppressors. And it's what they call subsonic ammunition. So you won't get the crack. I know when you hear the sonic boom of an aircraft, it's the same thing when a bullet. A bullet breaks the sound barrier, you're going to get a crack, right? And that is a mini sonic boom. With subsonic ammunition, of course, the suppressor slows down, bleeds off the gases as the bullet's traveling down the barrel. So when it exits the barrel, it should be in subsonic mode, and you won't get that supersonic crack. And that's very important, right? Because that raises the sound level significantly. So we're going to shoot a couple of these, and we'll show you. We won't need any hearing protection for them because they're quite quiet. These will probably be very similar to what you will see in the movies when you hear a suppressor or silencer going off. All right. This is the High Standard. We're going to shoot about 5 rounds out of this. Yeah. And you can hear that was very, very quiet. I mean, it didn't hurt my ears at all. It's very, very similar to what you see in the movies. This one here is a more modern gun. This is a Ruger, and this one here comes with a suppressor on it. It's built by a company in Texas, and this one is actually for sale. And I don't know if you'll be able to notice a difference in the sound, but it is also quite quiet. Very pleasant to shoot. You can get the rodents in the backyard with it. Very, very nice. This one here is one that we built here at the gun store, and this is a Ruger 1022, which is very popular for suppressors. This is my personal gun. We built the gun here. We're a manufacturer, and this gun was built here. Put a scope on it, and it's good for pest control, and it's a lot of fun to shoot. And this is extremely quiet. You can see that was very, very quiet. So nothing is like you see in the movies. If we shot a larger caliber one in here, a 9mm or 45, we would still require hearing protection because you're going to get, it's a lot louder. But with the 22s, The technology today is so good that you can get them really down to a nice, quiet level.
Hi, I'm Mike Rogers from the Gun Store. It's time for Moron of the Week, the segment in which we try to show people being unsafe so that you won't be.
So squeeze that trigger, don't pull it. Give us a heads up before you shoot, and you're ready.
Alright, I'm gonna shoot.
Okay, Galvin, hold on a second. Galvin, cover her ears. If at all possible. Hey, just put her head down on your chest and cover one side.
Yeah, make sure. Yeah.
Hold on just a second, Jessica.
Oh, it's kind of heavy.
Okay, go ahead whenever you're ready.
She was ready.
Go ahead whenever you're ready.
I'm ready.
Oh, crap.
Yo, what happened? Where am I leaving?
I think the moron on this clip was not the person firing the gun, but that person that was instructing her. He put down a pad so that her pants wouldn't get dirty when she knelt. However, he failed to give her eye and ear protection, gave her no instruction. She was injured by the recoil of the scope hitting her in the eye. She really could have used some good instruction. She probably now hates guns and hopefully isn't too fond of the people that showed her those techniques.
But I also understand law enforcement has a job to do. And if they don't believe you were right, it's their job to find out if you committed a crime. On the legal brief, we've been talking about how to respond in the event of a self-defense shooting. One of the questions that always comes up, and there's honestly not a really great answer to it, is, what do you say to the responding officers? I know people who say things like, I'm not going to talk to them at all, I'm going to wait for my attorney, and that is a valid point. I know others who say, they're there to help me, and I'm going to say whatever I have to say. I understand that position, but I also understand law enforcement has a job to do. And if they don't believe you were right, it's their job to find out if you committed a crime. And talking is not always a great idea, especially not without an attorney present. I advise my clients that if they're ever involved in a self-defense shooting, when the officers respond, they say, "Officer, that man attacked me and I defended myself. I used that gun. Now, I want to be helpful, but I'm a little worried and I'm a little nervous right now, so I would like to talk to my attorney before we do that." Most officers will respect that. Call your attorney or have somebody else make the phone call. Tell your attorney you're being detained after a shooting and that the officers want to talk to you. If you have an attorney on retainer, they should come down and assist you. If not, they'll meet you at the police station or at the jail if you're arrested. Either way, remember, invoke your rights to Miranda, remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in a court of law, and immediately after a shooting is not the time to speak.
Welcome back to Fired Up. Florida lawmakers, surprisingly I think, just voted down a bill that would have repealed their famous Stand Your Ground law that was such an issue with the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case. Although Zimmerman's defense didn't use it as an example or as a defense in their case, a lot of people have put that whole case to the fact that George Zimmerman was not required to retreat. He was allowed to stand his ground. Again, he didn't use that as a defense, but many states do have those laws, and we're going to look at them for just a little bit.
Every state has a slightly different wording, and some of them are very, very blatant. Right in the statute says you do not have a duty to retreat like Florida's. Nevada has a stand your ground provision where you do not have to retreat in the face of force. California, I get this question a lot. Does California have stand your ground? And they do and they don't. What they don't have is a
Spoken like a true
statute.
lawyer.
You know, here's the crazy part. It's all about the laws and the way they were drafted. California does not have a statute, statewide statute, that says you have a right to stand your ground. What they have are two very old cases, one from 1895, one from 1897, one of them involved horse theft, where the Supreme Court actually said, in the face, a man need not flee if his life is in danger. The next one took the need not flee language out and basically said you can stand there, stand your ground and fight. And that's the two cases that California attorneys rely on for stand your ground. They also have, unlike Nevada, our jury instructions are kind of a hodgepodge of what people have used over the years. We don't have formalized stock jury instructions other than our reasonable doubt instruction, which was given to us by the Supreme Court. So pretty much if an attorney finds a case and they think there's good language in it for their case, they can draft up a jury instruction and say, Judge, I'd like to use this. I'd like to give it to the jury. California has a very strictly structured series of jury instructions, and those are what you use. They're called the CalCrim or the CalJICs. And California Jury Instruction Criminal number 505 says, in the face of a threat to your life, you may stand your ground. It's right in the jury instruction. And so while they don't have a statute that says stand your ground, they do have stand your ground.
A jury instruction.
The trick is this. In true stand your ground states like Florida, if you present a stand your ground defense and the judge finds that you had a legal right to be there, you meet all of the prongs, you weren't the aggressor, your life was in danger, and you stood your ground, they can then dismiss the case against you and say, we're not even going to have the trial because the law said you were legal to do what you were doing. In states like California, where there's a common law right to stand your ground, it's for the jury to decide. So you're not going to get out of the charges, but the jury can look at it and say, you met all those prongs, you get to defend yourself.
So you're going to spend the $700,000.
$700,000, yes, to get to that point.
Yeah, but you know, this was almost a unanimous decision to uphold stand your ground. I mean, it was a vast majority decided that they were not going to buckle under the pressure that the federal government is trying to push on the Florida law, but they're going to continue it, which kind of makes me feel pretty good that
it
they had
reaffirms a little faith in the
guts,
process, right? That they're not backing down in a situation like this. And you know, like Bob said, you know, he didn't use that as a defense to begin with.
Right.
So why are they attacking the law anyway? You know,
well, because the political motivation of the entire prosecution in that case was based on trying to move an agenda along.
Well,
it wasn't about justice. Right there.
That's a political agenda. It wasn't part of the case at all. Had nothing to do with it, and they're going to try and repeal it. And it's very similar to all the gun control things.
That case is a prime example of the media moving the conversation. Right. Stand Your Ground was a media-created fiction. At no point did Zimmerman or his counsel actively promote that he was standing his ground. He was lying on his back. Yeah. So he wasn't standing his ground. He wasn't standing at all. He was a victim of attack.
You know, there are times when the stand your ground, it makes you feel like, okay, I'm not going to retreat. And there's sometimes when shall we say, a tactical removal of yourself from the danger zone is a wise choice.
Absolutely. It certainly is, but my problem with states that don't have some provision to allow you to stand and fight if you can't safely retreat is that they require you to try to. Stand your ground really should only be used if it's a last option. Obviously, we all teach people that avoidance is best, and then get away if you can, retreat if you can, only then make this, as we've always discussed, life-altering decision to engage in the use of deadly force. You were a cop on the East Coast for an entire career. I'm sure you saw a bunch of places where somebody should have stood and fought, or
they could have.
They could have, except for the law.
Yeah, and they chose not to, and then the other way around too. And bad things happened, So it can go either way. I got one of my students in 1996 here in Nevada, shot and killed a guy in a gravel pit, And I testified at the grand jury, went to the grand jury, and they said that these were two full-grown, healthy adult males in the middle of an open gravel pit. And the guy threw a rock at him, and he pulled out a Model 29 Smith & Wesson. And the guy picked up another rock, and he shot him. And they said, well, what could he have done? Two healthy adult males in an open gravel. Back away from the situation. The guy pursues you with the rock, different story. And the grand jury indicted him, and he's in jail right now.
Right.
So
this all goes back to this political fallout from the Zimmerman case. And understand, my opinion anyway, is that the neighborhood watchman, George Zimmerman, in my opinion, had every right to defend himself. He's a neighborhood watchman. He's legally carrying a gun. That he's doing his job. There are hard opinions on both sides of this issue. I understand that. And there probably always will be. I don't think this case will ever be settled in the public's mind. We seem to have two groups that just, he was right, he was wrong. But the jury in this case has spoken. It's over.
Eric Holder has said that the Justice Department still might pursue and charge him with some sort of a federal crime.
He said that the other day when I think it was a slow news day.
Here we go again. Just squeeze my finger. Squeeze my finger. It's okay.
Show's going to live up to his title. Fired
I
up.
said the key word here. Sorry.
the trigger.
That one guy.
Pull the trigger on him.
That one guy.
Yeah, we can't call him by his name anymore.
He's getting red.
I know. Every time I hear him talk, it bothers me because of his political manifestations and in trying
I'm just going to hug him.
In
hug him till it stops.
in trying to put an innocent person in prison because he's got a political agenda, so when I even hear the words Eric Holder, my blood pressure, I got to go take a pill.
Well, we've talked about shooting cases that, nobody actually wins gunfights. Take that to the bank. Both sides, winners and losers, lose in a lot of respects. And if you don't believe George Zimmerman lost, try and live his life. He's going to spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder.
Well,
and
talk about
worrying
this all the
about
time.
Eric Holder coming after him for some perceived wrong.
Whether he acted criminally or not is a settled issue with a jury. He is going to face another trial, just like O.J. Simpson did. O.J. Simpson was found not guilty of his wife's murder, but a civil jury felt he had killed her and her friend, and they hammered him for a lot of money. Same thing is going to happen here. You're right. George Zimmerman's life, for all intents and purposes, is pretty much over. He's going to spend the rest of his life as this guy.
Zimmerman doesn't have the resources to go after. He's not O.J. Simpson.
They don't need resources.
He's a guy who was working for like $9 an hour or something, who probably has nothing now.
They want a political win. They're going to be able to say forever, because we are right now able to say the jury found him not guilty. They're going to be able to say a jury found him responsible. Media action there. In the end, however, George Zimmerman is alive, and I personally believe he would not be if he had not fired that round.
I agree. He had to. There was no place to retreat. We are wrapping it up here on another episode of Fired Up. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. There, on the end of this crawl, you're going to see there's all sorts of websites and things where you can get a hold of us. We appreciate your watching, and we'll be back in one more week. Same time, same station. Thank you.